It's what bothers people about this Palantir thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday.
Yeah.
The Palantir thing is very odd.
A lot of people feel that this is the precursor to a social credit score.
NWO,
a
people.
Digital kind of police state.
Yep.
I just think, Peter.
Let's not forget, total information awareness came out after 9/11, which was basically the same thing we have with Palantir. It was a government-ran project that was using pre-crime to detect terrorists in our country. It was shut down, and then 2 years later, Palantir got funding from the CIA, and here we are. So don't forget that.
Thiel is giving a 4-part lecture on the Antichrist.
Yeah, that seems odd.
Yep.
Well, here's what's really wild to me.
Next week, I think.
You build
it
military AI, military drone, autonomous drone technology to export to war zones all over the world. You build domestic surveillance technology to surveil our friends and neighbors. And then your other pet passion is the Antichrist.
They find you when you're young,
Now look at
promising, like
good.
JD.
Well, that's the thing. JD's going to have to, if he wants to be the president, he's going to have to say, Peter Thiel,
is the
I'm not.
Antichrist.
He's going to have to say, Peter Thiel is Satan, and here's why that's good.
All right, so it looks like Joe Rogan has been in damage control mode after all the recent criticism he's been getting, especially from that elephant graveyard video that has 2 million views now. I mean, you could tell this stuff has really been getting to him, and that's why last week he pretended to finally come to the realization that the government is using his podcast to push propaganda.
Yeah.
And now I think to respond to all the people...
I don't think he he didn't just realize that. They literally said, there was an article where they said that the Trump administration was reaching out to Joe Rogan to help quell the Epstein files, to help quell a lot of the audience. So I don't think he's just like, oh, they're using me. Like, no, I think he knows.
Out to the tech oligarchs. We have Tim Dillon on his podcast criticizing and making fun of one of Joe's tech oligarch friends / handlers, Peter Thiel. And this is the first time on
Good
Rogan's
Lord.
podcast
He's a
that
scary
anybody's really
looking
talked
guy.
about Peter's controversial surveillance company, Palantir, or J.D. Vance's connection to Thiel and how he's basically a Manchurian candidate created by Thiel. I mean, even when Joe had him on his podcast, he didn't ask him any questions about this stuff, and he was defensive of him up until this podcast. So I think he's been hearing the criticism and people saying he sold out to the tech oligarchs, and now he's trying to backpedal. Because last year, almost every week, he'd have on a new tech billionaire that's trying to promote their agenda. But of course, Joe thinks his billionaire friends are the good ones.
I know multiple guys that are
They're not woke, guys.
and they're very nice people. They're very nice, and I can see how it happens.
But you're also friends with the cool billionaires.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
Yeah.
you managed to find the cool ones.
Well, Elon's the coolest. He's my favorite billionaire.
And obviously they're friends with him because they're just trying to use his podcast, which
As
Peter
propaganda.
Thiel had been doing behind the scenes for years. Like, Rogan's been friends with him, I think, since 2018, a couple years before he signed his Spotify deal, which Peter Thiel's a big stakeholder in Spotify. And also a lot of Rogan's guests are
Very
connected to
interesting,
him,
yeah.
like have either worked for him, been in business with him, or friends with him, or funded by him. Like, obviously every tech guy Rogan has on is associated with him, and a lot of Rogan's intellectual friends are too. And here are just a few that have mentioned it, and also Rogan talking about going to his house.
What made you want to dedicate so much time on this particular UAP, UFO, lost technology subject?
I was working at Peter Thiel's family office in L.A.
Yeah, my friend Peter Thiel critiques me on this point just as you have. And my boss and good friend Peter Thiel was a supporter of Trump
My
in the last
boss
election.
and good friend.
I'm taking a huge risk in how much I love this guy Peter Thiel and how much he loves me.
Oh
And people
my
say,
God.
"Okay, you're just a Peter Thiel tool." Well,
A friend of mine, Peter Thiel, and I was.
He does something with his
it's
tool.
Like basically, he's like, look, civilization is declining. You can tell because all the science fiction movies are negative.
The brain in the frying pan.
Yeah, this is your brain on
I remember
drugs, yeah.
once having lunch with Peter
All
Thiel, and he-
the science fiction movies are negative, or is it that we are building? Those were the blueprints for what we've been always wanted to build.
was saying he was grown up with that.
The guy who made me feel really dumb and almost like a fraud was
Brendan Schaub?
not Brendan Schaub, Peter Thiel. I was listening to him talk,
You
and
met
I
him?
went, yeah, I met him at dinner at his house, and I was like, he was talking, and I realized that everything I say is basically an amalgam of the things I've read or heard.
And
this
he's
guy
one of the
thinks,
ones that write those things.
Yeah, he just thinks up things on his own. Like,
Well, he started PayPal with Elon. Peter Thiel had a party at his house, and he brought over the guy who wrote Chariots of the God. No, we all had like a lunch around the table. He has these like power dinners and power lunches. They're really cool.
Let's
where
go.
It brings over interesting people and everyone has conversations.
That's the dream.
I went to one of the dinners at his house, then I
so
went to one of
bad.
the lunches at his house.
And Thiel is more of a behind-the-scenes guy. You know, he invests in companies, but also like people, like podcasts.
He's the George Soros of the right.
And politicians.
The right.
Like he's arguably one of the most influential people in America. But last year he decided to make an appearance on Rogan's podcast, and all the comments were like, "Oh, Joe's interviewing his boss finally," or "Why isn't Joe asking him about Palantir, JD Vance, or his CIA connections?" So this is when people are like, all right, he's completely sold out. You know, like, what even is this podcast? Also, Peter, he just kept malfunctioning the whole time and could barely even answer a question.
You don't feel that climate science is a real science?
It is. It's.
He's like an old man. He's like Joe Biden. This guy's a
there's several different
genius.
things one could say. It's.
And the only interesting part was when they talked about Epstein, because Thiel, he's met with him before, and it was after he was already a convicted sex offender, which
He gave
Thiel
him
admits
money.
during this podcast, but he leaves out that Epstein actually invested in one of his companies.
Yeah.
So he kept trying to downplay Epstein's operation and act like the child sex trafficking wasn't as prevalent as people thought, and we should be more focused on who he's working for and why he's protected.
I don't know. You know, they're all the Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy theories, which I'm probably too fascinated by, because it felt like there was some crazy stuff going on that they were able to cover up,
And still are.
But then, man, doesn't it, the fact that we're still talking about Jeffrey Epstein tell us how hard it is to come up with anything else?
No, because there's no answers.
what?
Probably
Nobody said anything about
Probably
it.
the sex stuff is overdone and everything else is underdone. It's like a limited hangout. We get to talk about the crazy underage sex.
How much he's sweating.
And you know, not.
Or that's
about
just his natural
all
grease.
The other questions. The question isn't about the sex with the underage women. The question is really about, you know, why was he so protected? And then, you know, I went down all these rabbit holes. Was he, you know, working for the Israelis or the Mossad or all this sort of stuff? And I've come to think that was very secondary. It was obviously it was just the U.S. You know, if you're working for Israel, you don't get protected. You know, we had Jonathan Pollard. He went to jail for 25 years or whatever.
But unrelated, right?
Understood, but it's.
But this is one particular operation.
But it was if it was an intelligence operation, the question we should be asking is what part of the U.S.
And of course, Thiel thinks he was only working
DC?
for U.S. intelligence. And Joe doesn't say it here, but he said a bunch of times on his podcast that he thinks it was Israeli intelligence. Also, usually when Joe is talking about someone who met with Epstein after he was convicted, he's like, "That's insane. I can't believe it." But when Thiel tells him this, obviously there's nothing to say about it. And then he even defends him on another podcast.
Real weird thing is that he just gets out and gets like house arrest.
Yep.
And he gets like a little slap on the wrist, and then he's back in action with all these rich people again.
Yep.
Like really rich, influential people. Like Bill Gates is hanging out with him after he's already been arrested and convicted. Like that's bananas. And you were introduced to him. How was he described to you?
He was
Just a cool
described
guy.
as one of the smartest tax people in the world.
Interesting.
And I probably was my moral weakness that I.
Well,
don't
how
like
could
paying
you have known
taxes.
back then? He had never been arrested.
No, this was 2014. It was post arrest.
Oh, so his arrest was the first arrest, right?
Yeah,
Which was like 2000.
07, 08.
Okay.
And then after this,
He's like,
Joe out on Kurt Metzger.
June
and he's
14th,
like, man,
2008.
Peter Thiel you just had on is the biggest liar ever. And Joe's like, what did he lie about? And then Kurt goes into what he was saying about Epstein. So Joe gets really defensive and he has to come up with the biggest cope I've ever heard. This is unbelievable. He says there's no way Peter Thiel could be involved in a blackmail operation or a child sex trafficking operation because he's gay. That's Joe Rogan's defense here.
Peter Thiel, I watch you talk to Peter Thiel. I've never seen someone lie so artlessly and autistically in my life.
What did he lie about?
Oh, dude, I'm going to put this out about Epstein Island. Maybe just some guys were cheating on their wives. Yeah, maybe that's all it was, Peter. Some guys were cheating on their wives.
See, the thing is, he's a gay guy, and he's not interested in going to that island, so he's probably on the outs. And allegedly, I mean, I don't know.
What?
I don't know if he supposedly.
You don't think they can get little boys?
Oh, I'm sure there's gay blackmail, but you can't when a guy's single and gay, like, what are you going to get on him? That he fucks other guys? If
See, that's why they don't want gay marriage.
Yeah, so that was an interesting take. I guess Joe thinks
What?
there are no.
Couldn't you apply that to these are just single guys, and what are you going to get on them? Oh, they're effing little kids. Same thing could be applied for him. What are you talking about? Honestly, that's more of a chance that he's probably into that kind of shit.
I mean, after hearing this, I think Thiel might have blackmail on him, but it seems like Joe might be trying to distance himself a little bit, or at least give the illusion that he's distancing himself from Thiel after this recent podcast with Tim. And at one point, Joe asked Tim about a dinner he turned down with Thiel, and Tim says he just doesn't really trust him.
Yep.
And also, he was complaining about how the tech people never have good food at their dinners. That's definitely a big part of it too. You know, if you want to win Tim over, you better make sure you have a 5-star feast prepared for
Filet.
him. Like JD Vance, he must have picked a good restaurant to get Tim to go to that meeting with him.
I don't think Peter Thiel eats food like a person. I think it's like he has some type of,
What?
you know.
What do you think?
I think a lot of these tech people, like, they don't like food. They're not food people, a lot of these tech people. I went to a few of these tech things in Austin. It's not, the food's never the thing. They're not like food people.
They're all in amphetamines,
They're not like,
dude.
ooh, let me eat food. Like wasps are not either. Like real old school, like waspy.
Didn't you get invited to have lunch or something, or dinner with Peter?
Yes.
Yes, I said no.
Did you?
I said no. I'm a little wary of that circle of people, and I'm not
Very
saying there's
good,
anything
rightfully
inherently
so.
evil about them because obviously there's people in there.
And Tim has to be careful here because Joe's been to the dinners and a lot of his friends have. So when Tim says he didn't want to meet with him because he doesn't really trust him completely, Joe's like, yeah, but you'll take money from Saudi Arabia. So he kind of takes a dig at him. And then Joe talks about how he met with Thiel. And after that, Tim's like, yeah, I didn't want to go because I still want to be able to make fun of him. And Joe's like, oh, do you think that's part of the reason why he invited you? And Tim's like, yeah. And Joe kind of agrees with him. So he's pretending to realize that Thiel's just using him. And then also Tim tries to explain that to him as well.
I'm a little wary of that circle of people, and I'm not saying there's anything inherently evil about them because obviously there's people in there. I just
There is
don't
something
know
though.
that I want to go to.
They draw on occultist philosophers, man. The Dark Enlightenment neo-reactionary movement, which is founded by, well, Mencius Moldbug or Curtis Yarvin with Nick Land's help, which Nick Land is an amphetamine sucking occultist, weird freako futurist. They are evil, man. They're like neo-fascist. They're neo-fascist futurists, basically. They want to institute the technocracy, and they're all on fucking drugs, dude. That's why they don't eat very well.
With someone who's going to talk endlessly about the Antichrist.
But yet you'll go to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, of course.
And perform.
Of course.
I've been to Peter's house twice.
Yeah.
I went once with dinner.
And talking about the Antichrist also, there's a concept called hyperstition that Nick Land came up with. And it basically is like spells. It's like talking things into existence. It's if you talk about it now, it poses the question among the people, which has to be kind of answered. And if enough people talk about it, of the community that has to answer it, and that it can sway the direction of the world, of the culture. So talking about the Antichrist over and over again is an interesting little tidbit there that he keeps bringing that up nonstop. While doing this weird double speak where he's also pushing for Palantir, this kind of AI global governance and the singularity. They want to push for this type of thing, but also talk about a new world order and a antichrist. Like it's a weird mix. Also hyperstition being, well, let's speak it into existence. It's like these people are like, they are weird. They think they're like weird wizard occultists.
Weinstein, I forget who else.
I'm sure he's a very nice guy. Like Peter Thiel. People
He's a
that
nice
know
guy.
him
I've
go,
had
he's
him
a
on the
nice guy.
podcast.
He's a smart guy.
And then Curtis Yarvin, who's like his house philosopher, referring to people in America as hobbits, and he and his ilk are the dark elves. Like that's weird. This is weird fucking shit, dude. Like these people are weirdos. So there absolutely is something weird and evil going on with these people.
Again, I get invited to a lot of dinners and a lot of things. And what I try to do is I try to say to myself, I need to be able to criticize people and make fun of them.
Right.
So it felt like really weird to go to this guy's house and then shit on him the next day.
Do you think that's part of the strategy of inviting you to go to places?
Yes.
Yeah.
Most likely. Everyone has an agenda, and that's completely understandable. And I think what they try to do is sometimes launder that agenda through some cultural space, however they want to do it. You know?
Yeah.
And that's happened forever. It's not new. It's not unique because there's an internet. 1,000%. There's people that want the world to look a certain way. What he wants, like, I'm sure it was like a lovely, like, he goes, I want to talk about the media. And you're like a comedian, but you're in the media, and like, you know, he has a bunch of people to his house. There's probably smart people that go.
Yeah, he likes to have
and they
these
talk about the media.
Big thought, like think tank conversations.
Yeah, and I just felt like that didn't appeal to me.
And it's funny Tim even has to explain this to Joe, because Joe's explained this a billion times on his podcast, you know, how billionaires have too much power and influence over the media and politics. And also, obviously, he'll talk about how sketchy it is that they're connected to Epstein. But then, like, right after he gets done talking about this, the next day he'll have on a billionaire that's connected to Epstein that's just trying to use his podcast to gain more influence and power. But of course, they're the good billionaires. They're the good ones that met with Epstein. So also Joe is coping over this by acting like when Peter Thiel first invited him over, his podcast wasn't very popular. Like, there'd be no reason for Thiel to think he's useful. Like Joe said, he wasn't influential at the time, but this was in, I think, 2018 or 2019 possibly. So that's complete bullshit. You know, he had the most popular podcast in the world, and he got that Spotify deal just a year or two later. So it's really weird he acts like...
Lord of Pettiness, Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is gay. So is Tim Dillon. Interestingly enough.
I was a nobody back then. You know, I wasn't on his radar.
I don't know why he brought me over the house to meet Eric Von Daniken, but I was not that influential back then. I was not someone that you would have on the radar.
Also, even if you're not influential, then you can see the trajectory. And if he promises you a Spotify deal, which he said he has a stake, he's a stakeholder in, they know you're going to explode.
The guy who is going to affect presidential campaigns.
Yeah.
I was a MMA commentator who's a dirty comedian who talks shit on the internet.
Right.
Like, that was it. And I had Eric on my podcast before, and that's how Eric and I became friends. And he knew that I had a deep interest in, and I've read Von Daniken's book, I've watched his documentary, and I know that a lot of that stuff has been debunked. And that's one of the reasons why they wanted to bring me over to ask him questions.
Yeah, so Thiel's not going to like this podcast. I mean, they also talked about how he's a Christian, and Tim explained how he's using religion to try to get people on board with AI and transhumanism, which of course...
Yes, and one of the major points of the neo-reactionary movement is they are anti-democratic. So I think he did not want to be outed as a homosexual man by Gawker, and that's why he sued them into oblivion, or Hulk Hogan did, or whatever. He wanted to get the Christian anti-democratic people on his side. He wanted to have an in with these people, with the Christians, but quoting all this scripture. But that threw a wrench in things when they found out he was a gay man. And then he even came out at, was it 2016 RNC, and talked about being a gay man openly. And he's still quoting scripture. So any Christian who is looking at this guy and thinking, yeah, he's one of me, he's one of us, you're a fucking idiot. He's only using you because he knows we appeal to... not to the masses. We appeal to Jesus Christ. We appeal to the Bible.
Just being religious and pro-transhumanism seems like a massive contradiction.
And he wants to use that
this guy will make sense
as a way to get a monarchy.
Also Joe's like, how does
he wants a monarchy, a CEO monarchy is what they want, ran by the tech people in AI.
Reconcile being gay with being a Christian. Like, that's his biggest hypocrisy. You know, the guy's a walking contradiction.
He really is. Doublespeak is crazy.
Anything.
A lot of them.
Thiel?
Yeah, of course. Everyone.
How does he reconcile that with the gay stuff?
I don't know how anyone reconciles anything with anything. But like, I think.
I feel like Tim is really trying to walk a fine line here and not try and go off, because he knows Joe is more or less on his team, so he doesn't want to be like, yeah, this guy is like Satan incarnate, because then Joe would. But I think he's trying to lead him over. He's trying to pull Joe over that direction. It's like, hey, this guy is he's a little weird, man.
I don't know, but they've realized they have to sell the AI stuff and the eventual augmenting of the biology, all of that to Americans. And there'll probably be a lot of the objections to that will probably be religious.
Yes.
Or rooted in religion. People going, I don't want to be a... But if you can somehow launder it and go, no, God likes and wants you to have the autonomous drone. You have to position.
Right, that's what the Augustus Dorico dude was saying about seeding the weather, who he's also being funded by Peter Thiel. He's saying, no, we have dominion over this earth. We have dominion over nature. But then when you bring up something like trans, right, then it's like, wait, isn't that the same thing? No, that's woke. That's woke. That's not what we're talking about. But it's like, how does that not comport with what you just said? That's nature. That's their gender.
I don't know. I'm sure he can reconcile the gay stuff with the way. There's tons of gay Christians. I'm sure he's a very smart guy. Mm-hmm. He'll be able to figure it out.
That's an interesting strategy.
Well, that's the strategy.
That does make sense, though, as a strategy. That's how you would approach things.
You would have to.
Yeah.
You would have to. You'd have to go out and say, the good news is God wants you to have all of these things.
Right.
Which isn't Christianity. It's some other, they've concocted something else. Mm-hmm. If you're augmenting your biology to live forever, or to live a lot longer.
We're supposed to die.
And you are seeding clouds and doing all of this stuff, then you are playing
seeding
God.
clouds.
Yeah, so it's wild that Peter Thiel, who's a gay transhumanist immigrant, is one of the most influential people on the right. It's kind of impressive that he pulled this off, considering everything he does and believes in. Like, also, he has an interesting take on transgenderism. Most people on the right would say it's wrong because it's unnatural, but Thiel's criticism of it is basically the opposite of that. He thinks it's still too natural and it doesn't go far enough.
Yeah.
And he uses Christianity to try to justify this theory.
Orthodox Christianity.
You would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would.
This is a long hesitation.
Yeah, come on, bro. It's such an easy layup.
Would the human race survive?
And this is the thing, is that he keeps putting up this dialectic of Armageddon or the Antichrist, Armageddon or the Antichrist. Well, in your view, you're fucking hesitating on the most fundamental part, is that, yeah, we want humans to survive and not be under oppressive AI regime, but you don't even give a fuck about humans, clearly. From this non-response, this airball of a response. So why the fuck should we listen to you, you bum? Your made-up dialectic of, Armageddon or Antichrist. It's going to be the end of the world or it's going to be oppression. What do you want?
Yes.
Okay.
But I also, transhumanism is this, the ideal was this radical transformation where your human natural body gets transformed into an immortal body.
Great.
And there's a critique.
Who do I want to live forever?
The trans people.
Chad, if you had to pick one celebrity to live forever and every generation has to deal with their bullshit, who would it be? Who would it be?
In a sexual context, or a transvestite is someone who changes their clothes and cross dresses. And a transsexual is someone where you change your penis into a vagina, and we can then debate how well those surgeries work. But we want more transformation than that. The critique is not that it's weird and unnatural. It's so pathetically little. And we want more than cross-dressing or changing your sex organs. We want you to be able to change your heart and change your mind and change.
Not physically, not take your heart out and put a freaking pump in, dude. We're not talking about that. We're talking about material. We're talking about spiritual transformation. From the inside. That kind of heart, not the physical thing, you idiot.
Your whole body. And then Orthodox Christianity, by the way. The critique Orthodox Christianity has is these things don't go far enough.
That's not it. That is a total theosis. He's talking about theosis. And theosis is aligning yourself with God's will so much, to the degree so much, your imperfect human will with God's will to such a high degree that you are able to live like Jesus Christ, like God. You're not God. Nobody would say you are God, but you're living like God. What is it? Is it Irenaeus who says, or Athanasius says, God became man so man may become God. Athanasius said that. The statement, God became man so that man might become God, is a famous quote from St. Athanasius, who argued that through the incarnation of the Son of God, humanity can share in God's divinity and become gods by grace. By grace, Peter, not by robots and bolts and screws and statistics and data, you bum. This concept known as theosis or divinization means that through communion with the divine, humans can be transformed and restored to integrity, sharing in God's nature and experiencing eternal life. Not in a literal sense, but through participation in God's own divine life. Exactly. Communion with the divine, not with the material, not with robotics, not with AI.
Like that transhumanism is just changing your body, but you also need to transform your soul, and you need to transform your whole self. And so,
right, but the other
where,
wait. Sorry.
How are you transforming
the
your soul?
Of Christianity in the end is
transhumanism.
You get the perfected body and the perfected soul through God's grace, and the person who tries to do it on their own with a bunch of machines is likely to end up as a dystopian character.
Well, it's let's articulate this.
And you can have a heretical form of Christianity, that says something else.
I don't know.
I love that this guy pressed him on this.
Nature does not occur once in the Old Testament. It is about transcending nature. It is about overcoming things.
Yeah, so that's our vice president.
That's Gnostic.
Handler.
That is
Definitely
Gnostic.
Nothing suspicious about him. Nothing to worry about.
Transcending human nature and the human form is Gnostic. That is a Gnostic. That is not a Christian teaching, because God made us. We Christians believe we are made in the image of God. This isn't a shell. This isn't a fleshy shell that we need to shed off because it's not perfect. This is the way God made us. Same argument applies to transsexuals. God made you that way. There's something wrong spiritually. There's something wrong mentally, and we need to address that. That's what Christians would say to transsexuals or transhumanists. Even you, Peter Thiel. There's something wrong with you spiritually, bro. Maybe it's all the gay sex you're having. Maybe you need to chill on that. Maybe it's all the amphetamines you're taking. Maybe it's the people you're hanging out with. I don't know.
At least that's what Duncan Trussell thinks, one of Rogan's closest longtime friends. He went to one of Thiel's talks about the Antichrist and said he's a completely normal dude, nothing to worry about, and he's pissed that people say he's like the Antichrist. So in Elephant Graveyard's new video, he called Duncan out on this and exposed him, and now Duncan's just been spiraling over it. It's not going well. And I just posted a big video about that over on Patreon. So if you enjoyed this video, want extra content, and want to make sure you stay up to date with everything, that's definitely the best way to do it. It's definitely worth it.
I'm going to have to check that one out. Elephant Graveyard. Maybe we'll watch that sometime. It's long, though. It's like 2 hours long.